Good morning, everyone, and thanks for joining in on today's stream. Welcome, Keisha, Hunter, Trading Desk, Vicky, I'm Fierce, S, Matt, Kathy, Basil, Alex. Thank you guys so much for joining in on today's stream. We have a lot to talk about. So the SPY actually touched all-time highs in pre-market, or very close to it at least, and it came pulling back down a lot. Basically, inflation data is a lot higher than expected, and it's just not a good sign for the market. So we saw just a good amount of selling pressure across a lot of different sectors this morning, but not all of them. Some sectors that have a lot of upwards momentum are banks. So if we look at Bank of America, it's doing pretty well. Goldman is doing very well in pre-market. We can see it's really rallying up. JP Morgan isn't doing too bad either. And then another sector that's looking pretty good is the MJ sector. So Tilray, CGC, stocks like that, they're looking pretty good this morning. And we all know that with these MJ stocks, when they get that momentum going, they just explode. So I think we're still a little bit early, but definitely just keep your eye on the MJ sector. It's starting to pop up.
Yeah, it really is. And those marijuana stocks have honestly been falling down for the past couple of weeks quite a bit. Like if we go look here on the daily chart, you can see how CGC has really tanked off down to this 21 support, getting close to that $20 area once again, but really hit off that support level very nicely. And we're seeing green today. So that's honestly a really good setup, I think, for some of these marijuana stocks. And even for like the next few months to next couple of years, I think that these stocks will start to do pretty good.
Yeah, and in the grand scheme of things, they're still relatively low. You look at CGC, and it's not like it's overextended. Like it actually looks decent for like a dip buy, even for shares. So just keep your eye on it. It is good to see upwards momentum, like with this sector, given everything going on in the market.
Yeah, it is. And right here initially at open, we actually had the SPY catching some green, kind of recovering back up, which is an interesting take. Let's go see how the banks are still looking. I know that they were looking pretty good earlier on. JP Morgan's not looking the best as of right now. Bank of America is actually starting to sell off a little bit. I wonder if Goldman's holding itself up. And yeah, Goldman at least has some green at open. I know they probably were the better out of all the banks. And man, I'm wondering, I have to go check out Goldman's report because I want to see how their trading division did again.
Yeah, they did good, but it wasn't as good as 2020. I was reading into their report, and their numbers weren't as crazy as 2020 because we haven't seen that type of volatility in the market in 2021 yet. But it was still a crazy number. I think it was like close to like overall with fixed income and like equities. I think it was just over like $6 billion, which is insane.
Yeah, that is actually pretty insane. And man, it's just these banks, like we've said, they've still been able to hold themselves up, even though like we've been seeing inflation going up and stuff like that. They're still doing pretty good, and I like that. And I think that these, like you said, that stress test a couple weeks ago was a pretty big factor, I think, and shows that these banks could have a lot of strength. And here we go at open. We have Goldman actually starting to really fly up now. That's actually a way bigger move than we were seeing. JP Morgan is catching green again, and Bank of America looking pretty solid. Let's see if the SPY is still coming back, and it is actually up above 436.50 now, looking like a pretty solid recovery play actually.
For sure. And then we have Trading Desk saying, looking at QS this morning. So QS, I know that they had an amazing run up a couple months ago, but they've been struggling a lot lately. It's right at that $24 support. So it's not a horrible dip buy, and it's running up right now. It's not a bad setup.
Yeah, it's not. I actually really like this setup so far at open. It, like you said, it held that support down there around 24 and then 24.20 so well that it seems pretty good. And on the max daily, the setup's not my favorite on the daily chart, but like we said, we're right down there on that support. And I think that'll be end up being a pretty good level to buy off of.
So while I don't think that this play necessarily has the highest percent chance of popping up, I think that the risk to reward ratio is awesome. If you're going to buy in at support at like $24.50, the next major resistance isn't until like 32. And if you wanted to let it play out a little more, the next major resistance after that isn't until like 40. So the risk to reward ratio on this one's pretty solid.
Yeah, it is. I'm actually going to draw these levels on the chart now, but that's a big thing, whenever you're looking at risk reward, because it's just like, why would you buy some of these stocks at the top whenever your chance of reward is so low? Like it's always better to get in, like you said, whenever you have that higher ratio for you.
You know it. And then with the next comment, we have, let's see, Jay saying MSTR puts. Let's check it out. MSTR, yeah, it's down a decent amount this morning, around 1.4%. It's making lower highs. It has a big support at 500. So, yeah, I don't think that one's bad either.
Yeah, it doesn't look terrible. I will say on the 15-minute, we just fell below the 1000 SMA, which we've honestly been bouncing off of for the past few times we've touched it. You can see right here on, I don't have the exact date here. Let's see, August 22nd, it actually hit and bounced off of it there, and then also bounced off of it back on like August 10th and 11th. So it's been moving pretty well off of here. And now that it's below it, I would say we could end up going down in the short term. And whenever I'm looking at the max daily, definitely not looking solid. Did he say he was going to play some puts?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I think that would definitely be a good way to go. And the dailies be even bouncing off the SMA also.
Yep. And then we have Hunter saying, do you mean to tell me the quote unquote experts were wrong again? How could that be? Yeah, I know what you mean, Hunter. Sometimes when you see, here, I'm just going to say, don't believe every word you see, every headline you see, especially when it comes to the market. There's a lot of people that it benefits them to influence or say certain things to have the markets move the way they want them to. So we'll leave them at that. But then we have Corbin saying, can you tell me about Boeing? Boeing is getting smacked this morning. It's down around 2.7%. And Tom, I know you pointed out that news, how they're like stopping production or cutting production of like their Dreamliner plane or something like that.
Yeah, it's actually a pretty big thing, and they're just cutting. Like I said, they're cutting that 787 Dreamliner plane temporarily, and they're just going to lower the production rates after a defect was detected. And it's just a weird situation kind of for them. Obviously, they're going to just fix the defect and then get production back up going again. But in the short term, it's obviously a bad piece of news, and we're even seeing it break lows of days, or the low of day right now, actually. And looking at the max daily chart, Boeing is just looking like they looked like they were going to start popping back up last week to end the week, but they just ended up bouncing right off that 240 resistance off some of these SMAs, and they just ended up, going right back down. And I have a huge support on them down here around $220. So maybe we'll be able to retest that this week.
Alrighty, and then we have Oliver saying snow. Let's check it out. I know it had an amazing week last week. It's up a little bit this morning, and it's definitely holding its ground. Overall, I think the play looks pretty good.
Yeah, it does. And like you said, it's holding its ground very nicely this morning. And that's a really nice thing to see, actually, with snow. And it has that resistance up there around 270 to 272. We are getting a little close to that. I'll be a little worried about that. But on the daily, as long as we can break out above that, it looks like we could see a pretty decent run, actually. And if we can break out above that 270, 272 level, I think we could end up running up to that 280 resistance.
All right, and then we have Sylvia saying thoughts on Disney. So I love this play. I know it's down today. It's down like 0.6%. I'm not worried about it at all. I mean, it can retest the 180 support, and I'll love it the same amount as I do right now. This play for me is for most likely at least a couple months. I think the setup looks awesome. We got in before most of the move, and it had a huge day yesterday. So honestly, I wouldn't even be surprised if we pulled back for the next couple days.
Yeah, me either. That day yesterday was really good, actually, and one of the larger days for Disney actually over the past few years. So I'll definitely take that. And man, it was like we said, a great day. So you kind of just have to expect a little bit of pullbacks after a day like that. But I could see it still going up over the next month or two. Just keep in mind it might trade between 180 and like 187 for like the next couple months, kind of like it did while it was consolidating at the top here.
Yeah, it's not like Tesla where it'll just like double in a month like in 2020. But then we have Russ saying good morning NOK. So let's check it out. NOK it's popping, Tom. Wow. It's up over 8%.
Yeah, that's a big move actually on the daily, up like you said, 8%. Actually on the daily though, it looks like a pretty big gap up. Even though it's only 8%, it almost seemed like it would be higher with the stock being so low in price. But man, this could definitely start to run. This is a pretty parabolic move, actually. I know Icy Pro is going to be loving that one. And a lot of people in our Discord, I know, they were holding calls on this and leaps for like 2023, 2022. And I really hope it ends up playing out well. I really like it since it passed above this $5 resistance level. It's looked so solid. And man, maybe these guys are right. It's just going to end up going up. And I know that right now they're really relying on patents, but a lot of people are saying that they're going to be turning stuff around and kind of generating a lot more revenue in the near future.
Yeah, it's awesome to see it pop up, especially when you know a lot of people are holding it. Uh,
Yeah.
with the next comment, we have Adam saying, "Hey, Mike and Tom, can you guys take a look at CPNG, the 50 strike calls for January of 2022?" So, Tom, do you have any initial thoughts on this one?
I'll be honest, I kind of like the setup right now. It almost reminds me of a coin IPO or something like that, though it definitely did not move well since it got onto the market. But I will say I like how it's moving to the upside right now. It looks like it's kind of holding its ground pretty well. And it's not my favorite setup in the world. The implied volatility is super high right now. So keep in mind that if you're getting like those leaps, you're going to be paying quite a bit for them, unfortunately. But I think that the stock definitely looks like it could go up. Personally, I would just play shares with this one, but honestly, I think it's in a pretty good setup to the upside right now, Mike. And it was getting beat down, but I think it's kind of recovering back up, kind of like we're seeing like with Coin and a couple other ones.
Yeah, so they are a South Korean e-commerce company. But like you pointed out, Tom, that IV is exploding. So it definitely worries me to like get leaps at this point. It can be great, but you're just going to be paying a lot for them now because that IV, especially for that much time too. So I like the industry that they're in. Honestly, I did not do like a fundamental deep dive on like all their fundamentals, but based on their sector and their chart, I think it looks good overall, but you'll probably be better off just getting shares than a leap.
Yeah, and I see a pretty big support here, or a pretty big resistance at $44 and a pretty big support at $39 to $40. So if you wanted some levels to look at, I think that's the way to look at it. But personally, I think that I would just rather play this one for the longer term.
Yep. All right. And then we have Mike saying, "Good morning, guys. Got killed on SPCE yesterday, down 20%. Should I hold at this point or sell?" So it depends like what options you have. Are you holding shares? Are you holding out of the money calls? Like, so just give us a little bit more information. Then we have Jorge saying KO with the smiley face. How's it looking?
Yeah, let's hope it's going up. And yeah, there we go. That's actually a big pop out of KO. And Mike, we keep talking about that rotation where some of these Dow stocks might start getting bought back up. And it seems like KO is definitely one of those hot stocks right now. It bounced right off that $54 support and just looks really solid, actually.
Oh yeah. Uh-oh, Tom. Tilray's moving. TLRY. It's moving very well.
Yeah, there we go. That's actually great to see. We were looking at marijuana stocks right as we started the stream, actually, and this is a really hot move. It's actually hitting the 1,000 SMA on the 15-minute right now, which usually poses a pretty big level. But man, I hope we keep popping up this morning. This is a really good move actually out of Tilray. Let's see CGC, see if they're doing it too. Yeah, CGC looks really solid. Also, ACB usually moves pretty well, also up 6%, but I really like that move with Tilray as they're up 6.8%, and they're even running intraday. So it looks so solid, actually. And man, that like we saw in pre-market, the MJ stocks were popping up while we saw the overall market kind of popping down. And I will say there is quite a few instances where I've seen the overall market fall and these MJ stocks pop up in the shorter term. And I don't know if that's people just rotating in or what, but I would say personally that a lot of these marijuana stocks are just really undervalued for the longer term too. Like Tilray's all the way down to $17, and they were hitting highs of $60 just like 7 months ago.
Yeah, they've been beaten down quite a bit. And then we also have Russ and Jorge talking about SNDL. So yeah, it's popping up. There's a lot of momentum with MJ stocks right now, which is great to see. Then we have Kathy saying Airbnb, please. So Tom, what are you seeing with Airbnb?
Yeah, Airbnb, a little consolidation day today, a little bit red. They actually came down, bounced right off of the like we could say like the 200 SMA right here, or the support at 146. It just barely broke that, but ended up coming back a little bit right now, which is a good sign so far. I will say though, it opened, it definitely did not look the best, but keep in mind that the overall market did kind of pull back today on that inflation news. So we might just take a couple of days, but I'll definitely have my eyes on it and see like what ends up going on.
All right. And then with the next comment, we have Corbin saying Apple 145 For 145 puts for 8.6, I am holding. Let's check it out. 145 puts for 8.6. Good. So you're at the money. Apple's railing up right now. Just checking the option. So like 24 days left. Not bad. Yeah, I don't think it's horrible. I don't know. It's not my highest conviction play in the world, but I don't think it's horrible.
Yeah, with the way that Apple moves, I mean, if Apple starts going to all-time highs, obviously it's just gonna, end up ruining that play. But hopefully we could see that the overall market start to go down. We saw a lot of selling pressure this morning with that inflation data coming out, and it's almost too bad that that movement just didn't continue because everyone saw a reversal now, and it's going to probably make for a pretty choppy trading day, I think. So it's probably not going to be the best day in the world. And with that inflation data, like I said, I was hoping to see a little bit more downwards movement, but Apple's really recovering back up, and hopefully for his sake, it starts to bounce off of this 146 resistance and go back down.
All right, and then we have Roberto saying, "Hello guys, good morning. I'm considering a position in WYNN. Can you recommend entry price targets?" So let's take a look. WYNN. It's at a pretty big support right now. I think it's a good. Honestly, I think now is a decent time to start averaging in. So that doesn't mean to enter in all at once, but if let's say you want to put, let's just say for a simple example, 10 grand in, you might want to put 1,000 in now and then just slowly average in because no one can catch the bottom either way. So, dollar cost averaging will probably be the best way to go.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm actually just drawing some levels up on the chart right now. And I see actually a humongous support at that $100 level. I think if you wanted to get some shares, possibly selling puts at like the 100 strike or like the 110 strike might be the way to go with this. I mean, it's definitely the IV is kind of popping up a little bit. It was down a lot, but it's popping up a little bit now. And the stock definitely looks like it could go down a little bit more in my eyes. Like you said, though, Mike, it's down a lot. It's at these SMAs and at that smaller like 110 support. So hopefully it can start to go up right here, but it doesn't look too good, I think, in the short term. But like I said, I think that selling those puts might be the way to go, or just target somewhere like around 110, like Mike said, and just average in, even if it goes down to like 100, or like at the worst case scenario, I could see it maybe going down to like $80. But keep in mind, we'd have to see a pretty bad sell-off, I think, in the overall market, especially like the hotel, gaming, and like Las Vegas industry.
All right, and then we have Oliver saying S-Bucks looking nice too. $1 a day. Starbucks has been killing it, Tom. What do you see on this one?
Just constant green candles straight to the upside. We had like one consolidation day with Starbucks. Other than that, the past 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, around 8 trading days have just been straight up. So I love it. They're breaking out to all-time highs right now. I think if they could break out to maybe like 120 or higher, I think it would be even better. But I love to see the move like this. And personally, I think maybe later on today we'll be able to see another move up higher. But keep in mind, Starbucks likes to have these small stair steps to the upside. So they might not be a big runner, but they definitely go up, day by day.
All right, and then let's see. With the next comment, we have Sean saying AMC below $38.76. Look out. Yeah, it's getting really close, Sean. There's been a lot of selling pressure with this one, but it is bouncing pretty well off that support at 40.
Yeah, that's a pretty big move, actually. And man, I would almost expect this one to kind of continue to the upside today. I have another resistance up here right around 42.70. So you could watch out for that. But personally, like we said, that bounce off of that support is actually pretty solid. And I would think we could maybe expect some more upwards movement out of this today. I'm obviously not saying that we're going to explode up or see some exponential move or anything, but I think we might see like a pretty solid move, maybe up to like the 44 resistance.
All right, and then with the next comment, let's see. Next comment, we have V saying, "Good morning. What do you think about Tesla this week?" All right, let's check out Tesla. TSLA, it is down slightly right now. It's still under that $700 resistance, which has been a pretty big level in the past. I know with that bad inflation data, it kind of hurt Tesla. It's sitting right around support at 680 right now, but I don't know. It's looking kind of weak. Honestly, it's just not my favorite setup. I don't love it. I don't hate it. It's just I don't see a clear trending direction at this point. So like I'm just more neutral than anything.
Yeah, that's what I would say too. More of neutral on the intraday level. I love that 680 support, Mike, and it's actually right on the 1,000 SMA on the 1 minute, which is usually pretty good. And I'm glad that we bounced right there. That's a pretty good sign. But I will say, be a little careful, guys, on the max daily. Tesla's been trading off of this blue trend line for quite a while now, and we've kind of been just consolidating on it, falling off to the downside. We're actually retesting right on that level again. So if we start to see a good move up above that, I think we might see a solid move. But you can see even going intraday, it hit this trend line perfectly, ended up going down. So be very, very careful with Tesla. I think that we could still see some downwards movement with it. Like Mike said, we're about at like a 50-50 level right now. I think if we start to really break out above this trend line and up above the $700 resistance, I think that we're going to see a good move to the upside out of Tesla. But if we start to see it continue to hit these levels and go down, I think we might see more selling pressure and maybe have to retest those 600 supports, maybe the 550.
All right, we have Hunter saying Baba. Tom, this one is finally popping. It's running pretty well too, up around 2.5%. It has a ton of momentum, and we've been waiting for this for a while.
Yeah, we have, and I'm honestly sad I didn't get it on that $200 support. That would have been such a good level, right on that 1,000 SMA. I know Hunter had the EMA up pretty much in the same exact spots, and man, it's just it's crazy. I wish I would have taken advantage of that one, but Baba was dying off for quite a while there, and I know that whenever these stocks start to die, especially Chinese ones, sometimes it can get pretty volatile. But I love this recovery back to the upside, and I think that it shows that a lot of investors saw that was way undervalued and started buying that up. And I think that was just a great sign with Baba in the short term. And it almost reminds me of like Palantir, right whenever Palantir had that big turnaround, they just ended up going back to the upside for a couple months. And I think that we might start to see that with Baba now.
Yep. All right. And then we have, let's see, Corbin saying all of my Disney gains from yesterday are gone thanks to Boeing. So that's not good to hear. Yeah, well, sorry to hear that. Are you playing like weekly calls on Boeing or something like that? I see it's down around 3%. So, yeah, I mean, those weeklies can definitely be dangerous, or even if they expire like next week or the week after. In general, it's always better to get more time. Now we look at least like if we were to get a trade now, like the minimum expiration would be like August, which is like 38 days till expiration.
Yeah, and yeah, I think that would be about the minimum I would get as well. That's sometimes like these moves are just crazy. Like we'll see some of these stocks like Boeing, for example, that like the IV is not too high, but those weekly options, they still decay really fast. So you just have to keep in mind that if you're trading those, it's just going to be a really quick, up and down movement. And that's why like we recommend just scalping with those, getting quick in and out day trades, maybe something that lasts like 5 to 30 minutes or something like that. I think that'd be the smarter way to go. But if you swing something like that, obviously it can always get destroyed.
Yeah, so it turns out it was the 7:30 expiration. So yeah, the theta,
not too bad, but not the best.
Yeah, I mean it's still pretty bad though. It's like 17 days. So it's because like keep in mind that theta is the worst in like the last 30 days till expiration, and the closer you get, the exponentially like higher theta is. So when in doubt, get more time. So yeah, sorry to
Here, I'm
hear
actually
that.
pulling up the little picture of it really quick just to kind of see what it looks like here. But this is kind of the theta to curve line if anyone's interested in it. You can kind of see how like the option value, it shows it 120 days away, and you can see that once you get into that last 30 days, it really starts to rapidly I should say lose value. So definitely not a good time for premiums in that last 30 days.
For sure, and I'm glad you brought that up. It's a great illustration of how theta works. Then we have, let's see, Oliver saying loving the snowballs. Let's check it out. SNOW. It is looking good. It's up around 1% intraday. It's looking pretty good, bouncing right off that 268 support.
Yeah, it is. And it hit that 275 level this morning right on the nose and ended up falling down. So hopefully we can break back up above that. But I really like this upwards movement right now. And hopefully we can get more green candles and kind of go back up and retest that.
All right. And then we have Basil saying thoughts on BLNK. So I love the industry that they're in. They've been struggling a little bit lately. I like them overall. They have a pretty big support at $30, and then after that, the next support is at like 25 to 26. Resistance right around 40, and then the next resistance right around like 45. So I like them overall. I know that they are pretty volatile. The IV is relatively low right now, and it's still at like 82%. So options are cheap right now. So if you want to pick some up that have some time, I don't think that would be a bad idea.
Yeah, I don't either. And I think that it could almost be a good time for shares too. Like we're starting to really see some of these stocks pull back, like BLNK, for example, and it's getting pretty low again, almost back down to those good support levels. I know the biggest support on BLNK was down here around $26, but right now we're getting really close to a key level again around 32 or $33. And I really like it personally for shares and maybe for leaps, but more of shares than anything, just in case, we see like the market pull back or something. And like if we see tech pull back and BLNK has a crazy scenario where they come back down to 20 or something like that, then you're obviously protected with the shares and you don't have to worry about time.
True that. And then we have Trading Desk saying, is Gandalf standing on the Airbnb $147 line because it won't pass? Yeah, it's been struggling at that 147 area. I don't know if anyone saw this or not, but I saw with Airbnb, they actually were upgraded this morning and they have a $172 price target. So that's good.
Yeah, that's actually great news, and they're still going down. So definitely not a good sign. And yeah, let me show this like little standoff they had. You can see here how it just 1, 2, 3, 4, like on the 1 minute, anyways, we had like 10 bounces, but I'd say like 4 solid bounces off of that level, and hopefully we can see more green today. It's honestly not looking too good in the short term. It looks like it might break that low of days soon if this green doesn't continue, but hopefully we can see this green keep going up. And that upgrade was pretty nice. And on the daily, there's definitely a lot of room back to the upside, and I think that there's still some potential here.
Yeah, I agree for sure. Like Trading Desk pointed out, there is a lot of resistance at that $147 level, but this one's a runner. If we do see a breakout, this can definitely be a pretty good play. Then we have Sean saying, "What is Pep trying to do?" What is Pep trying to do? PEP. It is, wow, this thing's exploding.
Yeah, good earnings actually. I wonder how good they were. Let me check to see, and it's not showing me actually, but the earnings must have been solid. Of course, Pepsi's at all-time highs now, passed out above that 150 area. That's actually a great move out of Pepsi, and we even saw Coca-Cola up today. So both of them are up, which is interesting. They're competitors with each other, and I think it shows that type of sector might start to do pretty well here in the short term. And I think KO might start to see a pop as well. But keep in mind, KO does have earnings coming up also. And just because Pepsi did good doesn't mean Coca-Cola is going to do good too.
True that. Let's see. So I'm just trying to see what's moving right now. Apple's exploding. Microsoft is exploding. Let's see. Baba is exploding. Roblox is getting smacked. But yeah, it looks like there's a pretty nice recovery out of these tech stocks, Tom. Apple and Microsoft.
Yeah, let's check it out. Apple. Wow, it actually is Apple's at all-time highs again today. That's pretty awesome to see. They broke out again up to 146.42. Let me go back on the 180-day 4-hour chart just to like double check here. And yeah, they actually did move back up to all-time highs again. I know that yesterday they did that as well, but that's a pretty solid move today. And I'm honestly really liking the move out of Apple. I cannot believe that they were able to recover it open today and get all the way back up there. That's crazy. I feel bad for whoever was holding the puts on them, but man, it's just hopefully Apple can keep going. Personally, I'd love to see a solid breakout here, but it seems like a pretty parabolic move intraday. And normally we don't see too many moves larger than this unless there's like a huge catalyst or something. So I'd be careful for it to consolidate intraday at some point, but man, I really like it.
Yeah, and then we have Russ saying JP Morgan dropped on earnings. All these bank stocks went negative, Tom. JP Morgan's down over 1%. Goldman's down over 1%. Bank of America, they're getting smacked too. So interesting info.
Yeah, definitely. It's not good to see. I like early on, we were seeing these stocks really go up and it was looking pretty promising, especially for like Bank of America and Goldman. But definitely not a good sign. They're pulling back down below supports again. They're actually down below a lot of the SMAs, and they're just not looking good in the short term to me. So personally, I think we might see like a sell off again out of JP Morgan and maybe some of these banks. And, you know, like the daily setup looks pretty good actually. They were hitting supports at like 148, 150 on JP Morgan, looking pretty solid, but in intraday right now is definitely not looking good. But I think maybe come over the next week or two, we might see more green, but in the short term, anything can go on.
So, like, what levels are you looking at? I know that there's a huge channel with JP Morgan at 150 and then 160. Are there any other, like, notable levels you're watching?
Well, that's definitely the big ones. If I go intraday here to like a 5 day, 1 minute chart, I see a pretty big support level down here around 155. If we break that, I think that we might fall down to 150. I think if we hold that though, we might end up going back up to 160. But personally, just with the way the SMAs are moving, I think that we might end up going down. But yeah, that 155 level I think is going to be pretty big. I also see 156 as being pretty big, but keep in mind that like 155 and 156, they're kind of both like right in the middle of that range. So I would say somewhere between there would be a pretty good, like support level for right now. And then if we move like up or down significantly from this area, then I think that we'll end up going down to 150 or up to 160 again.
Alrighty, so I'm just looking at a couple different stocks right now. The SPY actually very close to its all-time high. It's at a huge resistance level right now at 437. So yeah, definitely watch 437. Apple is still rallying up. Tom, do you have any like stocks you were watching? Anything on your watch list? I know that these MJ stocks are going crazy.
Yeah, I was just about to bring that up again. Tilray, ACV, and CGC are still going. Well, they're pulling back a little bit now, but they're the biggest movers on my watch list, at least so far today. Tilray's up, like we're seeing, 4.5%. ACB's up over 3%, CGC too. So good moves out of the MJ stocks, but they are pulling back intraday as of this very second. And I think that they could keep going up, tomorrow or possibly later today. But that move that we saw at open was honestly pretty big out of these MJ stocks. Like Tilray had a pretty solid move from 1640 all the way up to 1740. And I could definitely see this continuing up later today, or like I said, possibly tomorrow. But I really like the MJ sector. And I think that it could end up doing pretty well over the next year or two, especially with the way it kind of came down. Like we saw that huge run out of Tilray and out of those other stocks in February. And then they tanked off as Biden like got rid of those cabinet members that smoked weed or whatever it was. So it was kind of a funny situation for marijuana. But I will say, even on like the 4 hour chart, bouncing well off the SMAs here at the bottom, hitting those supports well. And I think for the longer run, this will be a good time to possibly like grab some leaps or possibly, I think the safer way is shares, but leaps might be a pretty good way to go right now.
Yeah, IV is still relatively low. I'm actually very curious on like Tilray Leaps. So yeah, I'm definitely gonna check those out later today. But then Tom, what are you thinking with Penn? PENN?
I've been liking it a lot lately, actually. It's not it's not looked too good today, or it hasn't looked good in the short term, but ending the week last week, it had a couple of green candles that ended up looking pretty solid, but we are seeing it still kind of pull back right now. I love it for the longer term right now. It's just for the short term, it just doesn't look very good. But I will say there's a humongous support at $65. There was another huge one around $80, but we ended up breaking that to the downside, kind of moving to where we are right now. So I would definitely be a little careful with it in the short term, but for the long run, I think it'll be a pretty good recovery. But like I said, I think that for today and for like maybe for the next couple days, we might see another move back to the downside, but there is a pretty good support at 71.
So I like Penn. I just feel like we're still a little bit early with it. Like, I think it's gonna be a great dip buy for shares and maybe even leaps, but I just think we're a little bit early still. It's been having this slow and steady downtrend for the past couple months, and just like I feel like we're still early. Like if we look at Zoom, this thing downtrended for what since like October till May, so like that was a very long downtrend. I'm not saying Penn's gonna last the same amount, but I just think we're still early. But it'll be on my watch list either way. If we see a major breakout, then I'll probably enter into it. But I just wanted to point it out for everyone.
Yeah, definitely. I think that was the best way to put it, is just might just be a little too early right now.
All right. And then with the next comment, we have Oliver saying Microsoft acquiring Risk IQ. So, yeah, I actually saw that headline. Microsoft agrees to buy security software provider Risk IQ. So, another news article said that they're buying them because of just increased cybersecurity risks. So, Microsoft's a powerhouse. They're trending up, and they're just a solid corporation.
Yeah, they are. They're really solid, and I think that this just goes to show how solid they are. That they're making a pretty good acquisition here, and there's been a lot of talk lately about cybersecurity being a pretty big deal over the next like few years to maybe like 10 years possibly. They're just talking about a whole bunch of different stuff going on with hacking and stuff, and we saw that go on with that pipeline. Just I don't remember the name of it. It's not the Keystone pipeline. That's the plan that Biden canceled, but it was a different pipeline that ended up getting the hackers, like I forget what they did exactly, but they ended up holding the pipeline like as ransom, so they had to end up paying in order to use it again, and it was just a weird situation, and it just goes to show like how much security I think is going to be a pretty big deal in the future. Like if you can hack something and like stop the flow of oil to like multiple states, that's a pretty big deal. So I think that it just goes to show that there's a lot of vulnerabilities like on the internet and like in the security infrastructure.
Yeah, 100%. We have Matthew asking about the Dow. How's DIA looking?
DIA actually, it was moving up decent. Now it's kind of coming back down, retesting this like 349 intraday support, I should say. And I think it honestly looks like it might end up going back down, but I'm glad to see it kind of holding that level and kind of trying to stay up, but it's just not looking good right now.
All right, so I'm looking at like a heat map of the S&P. Looks like we're seeing mostly red, but it looks like Microsoft, Apple, Visa, Google, and PEP are really what's holding up the entire market. PEP's having an amazing day, but besides that, we're just seeing a lot of red out of bank stocks, just a lot of stocks in general this morning.
Yeah, we are. And especially like the bank stocks, like you said, that's a definitely a weird turnaround to see. I don't like to see it, but just a bad thing to see in the short term. I wonder if some of this like inflation news or something got to the banks. I have no idea. That inflation data came out, ended up being a lot worse than people expected. And I don't know if that's going to do something with the banks or no idea. Like, I don't know, like if maybe like Powell, maybe he'll come out in the next FOMC meeting press conference and say something about they're going to change rates or something like that. I have no idea, but definitely weird to see banks going down like this after reporting those earnings. And like we said, the earnings might not have been as good as before, but they were still pretty solid.
All right, and then I was just looking. Let's see. We have stock market charts saying, what do you guys think about EDR, the UFC stock? So Tom, I know you were messing with this one. It's coming down a little bit, down to that. What is it, like $24 support? You can say. What are you thinking?
Yeah, I ended up cutting this one, getting out about break even just to grab some of those Disney positions. But man, this is really good with EDR. I think it'll be really good for the long term. In the short term, it's weird to see them going down with that McGregor fight. You would think that would give them a lot of money, at least in the short term. But man, it's definitely not good to see this going on. I will say I like it for the long term. I think grabbing shares on them anywhere around like $23 to $24 is really solid. I own them before at like 24, so I was in it at a pretty low price, but I really like the stock, and as it kind of gets back to those levels, I might actually grab more of it. I really like it, but there's not a lot of data. They haven't been on the market too long. They IPO'd just back on April 29th, so right at the beginning of May, and just definitely have had some, I would say, more a flatter movement than anything. They did go up initially, but more than anything, they've just been moving pretty flat. And like I said, I think it's good to grab shares, but for right now in the short term, for some reason, they just keep going down, even though they just had that big event.
What do you think about cruise lines? Like I'm specifically looking at CCL. They're pulling back a good amount from the highs. They're almost down to that $22 level.
Man, that's actually not looking good today and on an intraday setup at all. Like you said, that $22 level, hopefully we can hold that and start to go back up. But this downwards movement is just starting to look pretty crazy. And I think we might start to retest maybe that 20 support. maybe get all the way in a really bad case scenario. If we keep seeing these bad inflation numbers and stuff, I think we might be able to hit like the 16 support, but the 20 support, I think will be the biggest level to watch for. And I think selling puts, we might have some good opportunities on CCL and some of these other cruise lines slash airlines over the next like couple of weeks. But yeah, I like how you pointed out, Mike. Definitely not looking good in the short term. And, a lot of people were looking pretty bullish last week on it as we saw those 2 green days to end the week. But now it's just totally erased that. And I think this inflation news definitely is hurting some of these stocks.
For sure. I was looking to sell some puts on them, but the premiums suck. The IV a couple months ago was like over 100%, and now it's less than half of that. So, I like the setup for selling puts, but I just want there to be higher premiums. I feel like if we like retest like 22 and like if we see like quick like selling pressure, that should rise premiums and it should be a good setup overall. Let's see. And then we have Hunter saying government is much more likely to bail out airlines than cruise lines. People probably getting real worried. Okay. Okay. I
That makes a
gotcha,
lot of
Hunter.
sense.
Yeah, I gotcha. So yeah. Either way, they're on my radar, and even airlines aren't looking too bad for selling puts either. If you look at like CCL, I mean not CCL, like LUV, they're pulling back a good amount. I know that they've been doing pretty well, getting right close to that $50 level again, and even DAL isn't looking too bad either.
Yeah, it's not. And I know LUV, they're my favorite airline, but it looks like they're actually bouncing off that 50 support. I hope that they can continue to hold here. But that does make some sense what Hunter said about selling about the government. Obviously, they'll bail out the airlines. And the big thing that I think that shows that the government's favoring the airlines is they were allowing the airlines to go at full capacity flights and stuff like that, but the cruise lines weren't even allowed to have one like one, I should say, excursion or one,
One
sailing.
trip,
So
yeah.
it was definitely a weird scenario, the way that they were favoring those airlines so drastically. And, obviously people need to travel for work and stuff. So I understand it a little bit, but at the same time, it just makes zero sense.
All right, and then we have, let's see, Sylvia saying thoughts on Zoom. So I love this company for the long term. I don't love them as much as I did back in May because they are like $100 more expensive. Overall, I like the setup though. I think the best way to go would be shares, just given that the options are pretty expensive in general.
Yeah, I think so too. They're always going to be pretty expensive. It's like $381. And Zoom's a pretty good company though. I think that they're definitely should be valued this high. And in the short term though, like you said, it could definitely start to pull back a little bit, but keep in mind a lot of stocks ended up going down early on in the morning today, and Zoom actually recovered up a little bit intraday. So it hasn't looked too bad actually. And I think if they could end up holding this 380 level today, they could end up looking pretty good.
All right, and then we have Dennis saying, "Can we get a red day on Nike for once?" So let's check it out. NKE. Oh, it looks like we're starting to get one. It looks like it just went from green to red. Looks like we're starting to see a little bit of selling pressure, which is good.
Yeah, we're at 0.25%, 0.28% now to the downside. Definitely not the biggest move yet, but man, it's consolidating a lot down here at these levels. And I would say if we could fall below 161, we might start to see a pretty big pullback out of Nike. And, it's a great company. I love how they keep breaking out the new highs. And whenever they break out like this and end up running, a lot of times they run for a couple months at a time. And I would think that they are getting to the end of that range, but who knows how high they can go before they stop.
The one I'm looking at is Target. This thing has just been exploding over the past couple months, and it's like green almost every day.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of like whenever we were trying to play Home Depot a long time ago, like at some point it just has to start coming down. And this one's getting so high. They moved up above that $200 resistance level like a couple months ago and just exploded. Like I cannot believe how many green days in a row that there's been with Target. I mean, there's been a couple of very, very small red days mixed in, but mainly all green days for the past month just about. And it's definitely a big move, but like you said, we're definitely going to keep our eyes open for when this thing starts to come down, because it'll be a pretty good play whenever it starts to fall. And, a lot of times, like when these stocks go up, they go up very slow and steadily, but when they go down pretty fast. So definitely watch out for it.
All right, Tom. So with the next one, we're looking at NDX, which is the NASDAQ. And we have Matthew saying, I am long the NASDAQ from $14,829. Any suggestions? So, Tom, do you have any thoughts, any technicals on this?
14,829. Let me find that exactly. That was a pretty good level, I'd say, for him to buy at. It moved up pretty well. We're moving good above the 100 SMA, which is good. I will say though, it's not like, for example, on like the Max Daily, we're starting to get a little overextended. If we see some of these tech stocks like Nvidia or something like that, if they pull back, or if Nvidia pulls back right after their split, and then we see a bunch of other stocks kind of follow along, I think that could end up being bad. But in the short term, I think it's a pretty solid play. And the NASDAQ is honestly starting to break out pretty well.
All right, with the next comment, let's see. So no more other upcoming comments. Just looking at a couple different stocks right now. Looks like AMC is trending to the downside. It actually just broke below that $40 support, which is a critical level. The next support is right at $38.76.
Yeah, and I think that you're right. That's going to definitely be a good support. We're like right at $40, unfortunately, and man, it's just not a good day, I'd say, for AMC. You know, I hate to talk bad about it, but I'm starting to get a little worried about it in the short term. This setup on the daily chart to me it just does not look good. You know, it looks like I think we're going to start going back to the downside, and just doesn't look like the best play in the short term to me. So I would definitely be a little careful with it, and I think that the big short squeeze or the big run, I think, is starting to come to an end, at least for right now.
All right, Tom, you're probably going to upset a lot of people saying that.
No.
Then we have Vang saying MA and Microsoft doing good. Yes, they are. MasterCard's doing great. Visa's doing pretty good too. Looking at MA, it looks like they're going to break out above that $380 resistance. Once they do that, they have resistance at 390 and then 400, but they look pretty solid.
Yeah, that actually looks really good. And man, like with inflation going up and stuff, I'm sure people are going to be using more and more credit. So I could see credit cards continuing to do well. Like credit cards should honestly almost always do well unless the government does something crazy and like cancels credit cards or something. But that would be a really, really, really crazy thing to do. But man, that they have that big upper resistance around $400 where that all-time high is. But on the daily, they're just riding this 100 SMA. They bounced off of it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times now and went straight up. So I really like it in the short term, but there is also a resistance right around 380. I think if we break that though, we'll head right up to 400. So definitely keep it on your radar. It looks like we're getting really close to there.
All right, and then we have Microsoft. They just broke all-time highs. They have a lot of momentum. It's just fueling that buying pressure with the Nasdaq overall. But yeah, looking at a couple different stocks to wrap things up, it looks like the China stocks are doing pretty well. Baidu's up over 3%, and it's pretty close to its high of day, and it's about to retest that resistance of just under 187 from pre-market.
Yeah, I actually really like that level, Mike. I think that it looks like we might actually break that and go up. And Baidu and Baba look so solid today intraday. Like these intraday setups are some of the better ones I'm seeing today. And I really think that the Chinese stocks can start to recover over the next couple of months as long as China can just, kind of keep their mouth shut. I think that, as long as they don't come out with anything weird again, we'll see a pretty good move. And I think that they might be done doing that. They've been kind of I shouldn't say going off on their companies, but they've definitely been pushing lots of regulations, fining them for lots of weird stuff and changing around the way they do cybersecurity and stuff. So definitely weird in the short term, but I think for the long term, they will start to recover back.
Yeah, when you think about China has a pretty big influence on a lot of different asset classes. We all know what they did to Bitcoin over the past couple months, but at the same time, in the short term, they really hurt that DD IPO. That thing got smacked. It even influenced Baba and Baidu the other week. And then on top of that, even a couple years ago, I believe it was 2018, when we had those high tensions with China, the market was struggling.
Yeah, it really was. And if we even go back to the SPY with that, here, I'll actually go all the way back on the daily chart and find that exact level that we were looking at. But man, that move down on the SPY from that was actually pretty bad. And we hit right off the 1,000 SMA, ended up going right back to the upside. But here's the move. This was actually the move whenever we got into that trade war with China and we started throwing tariffs on them, and then they were raising tariffs on us, and it was just like a back and forth battle between them and Trump pretty much. But pretty bad scenario. We can see the S&P 500 how much it pulled back, and I'll actually get out the tool just to show you, because this pullback, and this was almost all China news. Keep in mind, it caused a 20% pullback in the overall market in the S&P 500. So that's a pretty big move down, I would say. Let's see what COVID caused. So that China catalyst caused a 20% pullback. The COVID catalyst caused a 34% pullback. So we could definitely see a big pullback, I think, if China starts to get into something with us again. And, it seems like the tensions have just been rising and rising lately. So hopefully something weird doesn't happen.
Yep, and then we have Alex saying thoughts on EVs, so like NIO, CCIV, and Tesla. I really like NIO. CCIV, or like just all of them in general, are good for selling puts. I know Tesla's an expensive one, so you'll need a lot to sell puts on that. They do have earnings soon, but honestly, I like them all for the long term. I really like that industry in general. For the short term, I think I think CCIV is in a pretty solid setup to sell puts on. They're down 3% today, and you can sell a 22 strike put for next week and get paid over $40. In the worst case scenario, you have to buy CCIV at 22. So you're literally getting paid $40 to buy at a low price.
Yeah, that's almost like I hate to say market cheat codes or something, but I think that's a really smart way to play. And a lot of people they see selling puts, or they see options, and they think that they're pretty complicated. But if you guys just take out the time to learn selling puts, selling calls, it'll help you so much. I can tell you, I definitely wish I would have done it a lot sooner. For the first few years I traded, I didn't even really look at selling puts or selling any options at all. So it was definitely a good experience whenever I finally started doing that. And if anyone's on the fence about trying it, I would definitely do it. Look up some of our videos. Just I'll put some into the Discord if you guys come in there and ask us some questions about it.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many videos on selling puts. I don't even know how many videos I made on on those things. I know one of the most recent ones is if you search my favorite trading strategy for 2021, and there's just a ton of videos out there for them. But Tom, do you have any last minute stocks for the rest of the day?
Man, let's see how those marijuana stocks look. I'll be a little careful with those, but definitely still watching the banks to the downside. I'm going to be watching Bank of America just to see if we can continue to move to the downside. Also going to be watching JP Morgan. I think JP Morgan, if they can fall below this 155 support, I think we'll see a pretty big move. But it might not fall below there, but I would definitely keep it on your radar for the rest of the day. And there's not too many stocks moving up. Microsoft and Apple seem like they were doing pretty decent, but they're getting kind of, I would say, a little overbought right now. Apple's at all-time highs, and I wonder how much they can keep running.
All right. Well, thank you guys so much for joining in on today's stream. We had a great time. Thanks for all the great questions. The market's popping up pretty nice right now. Like Tom said, Apple at all-time highs. So looks like we're seeing a pretty good day overall. But thank you guys so much again for joining, and thanks for all the support. And we hope you guys have an amazing rest of your day.